wearing that.
Yeah.
At least, like, if you can't procure a jet Pepsi, then at least some kind of equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you guys for your patience here. Sorry, schools, and they're like, you don't have a job, right? So,
yeah, no.
For those that know, you empathize. For those that don't, you'll empathize eventually. All right. So, what I wanted to get to though was last time we were talking about a variety of things related to emotions and how you need to be consistent. If your dad hits you every day, that sucks, but it's okay. If your dad hits you some days, that's even worse because you don't know when it's coming. So that's why it's important for us to always be consistent. And for legal purposes, I'm obligated to tell you I'm not for child abuse. Okay? Truly. That said, this is really driving into your conversation around culture in general. Now, culture sounds like a really soft thing, or it sounds like something that we think we do naturally, but it really isn't. You have to focus on it just like you do within a call. The same way on calls, you kind of put an act on a little bit. This guy's a little bit more direct. I'll be a little bit more direct there. This guy's a C-suite. I'll maybe tighten it up. That same thing is true within the call of management, if you will. So we need to act a little bit different to make sure that the team acts the way that we want our team to act. So I've shown this slide before for those that have seen it, but I think it's a great slide to show. I want to show everybody. And again, thank you guys so much for your patience with that. Oop, I have it there. All right, culture. So what we had talked about last time was really, we were talking a lot about this, believe it or not. In a culture, what your values are feed what you think is acceptable, feed how, based on that acceptable or unacceptable behaviors, how intense your consequences are. And the traditions are what reinforce or remind you that you're in this culture. Now, the purpose of culture, call it corporate. The corporate purpose for culture is to, I'll say it in two ways, create and enforce behaviors without having to say them. Or in other words, create a brand for your behavior expectations. Here's what I mean. I've talked about brand before. I think this analogy works a lot, which is to say, I think the classic example is if I were to say Nike built a hotel, we can all picture what that hotel looks like. If I were to say Hilton made sneakers, we couldn't do it because Nike has built a brand that even if their marketing department isn't there, they're not spending an ad, there's no influencer telling you anything, there's no billboard, no commercial, we can still picture Nike. That is branding, which just basically means they're enforcing their essence, their values, who they are, without having to be there. Now, the more you move up in an organization, the more you need to enforce your values, your essence, without being there. People are really good frontline managers because they're like, I got 3 dudes. Our vibe is the 4 of us. And it's just the natural group of you and your 4 buddies, or you and your 4 people that are on your team. But when there's 12, or when you're above somebody and then they have groups, suddenly all the techniques you might have used to create connection with Sarah and really pull Tony out of his shell and get Bob to really do something special, you can't do that at that level. And so you have a very hard time managing the culture of the organization. And ultimately you end up getting to places where the CEOs just go, everybody's fucking lazy.
Are you in my calls?
Yeah. And it's because you end up losing empathy as you go up. So what we want to do is we need to create a culture that lives without us. So if you tell your team, I'm going to be out for a couple of days, that everybody works as hard, if not harder. So a question I would encourage you guys to ask yourself rhetorically right now is, if I were out for 3 weeks, how long would it take before the team would stop working this hard? First day they might fuck around, then they're back into it, and then at some point they'd be like, all right, fuck it. How long would that take? Is it a month? Is it a week? So how long that is a measure of how good your culture is. So if someone were to say, Mike, how do you have good culture? I'd be like, the culture I want to create is a culture where I want to be able to leave for 12 months, never talk to anyone on my team, and everybody behaves the way they're expected to behave. And the way that I do that is the combination of traditions and consequences, which are supported by, which are backed by acceptable behaviors that I design through having a set of values. Okay. This is also, by the way, like, so the deeper we go into leadership, the more it turns into just like personal stuff. So this is also true for yourself. It's like if you have the atomic habits basically is like, what you got to do to pick a habit is just make it a routine. You can just drive to the gym every day. Don't even go in, just drive to the gym every day. What they're doing is they're creating traditions. So that driving to the gym just feels like a normal part of your day. All right, let me get more deep into this. And you guys, please feel free to ask any questions along the way or say, here's what I do or anything. I know I'm always on my soapbox. So the values here is the backbone of everything. So if I value money 10 out of 10, and I value, support 7 out of 10, and you sort of see that in my behaviors and the things that I've accepted, you might think it's okay to steal a deal, to not put something into the CRM, to make fun of Sarah, who's not doing as well as you. You guys know that top rep on your team who's a real piece of shit? The top rep on your team who's a real piece of shit. Their value is money, which is why we love them. But what that their value does not include is care, empathy, or the organization. And so that's why they think it's so preposterous when you say something like, I need you to fill this field out in the CRM. They say things like, that's not a revenue generating activity. And you're like, yeah, totally. And me wiping my ass isn't a community driven opportunity or activity, but I should probably do it. Don't you think? To be like a good citizen, I should probably wipe my ass, or should I just not do that? It's not really community driven activity. So, but they don't value it. They're like, yeah, but wiping your ass is like a 1 out of 10 important. Okay. So I'm trying to drive home this idea that everybody has their own values. You want to create your values. So, these are some prompts I would give you. So for things to think. How are you okay? What are your thoughts on these category of things? There's an endless number of ways you can evaluate what your values are. However, here's what I do. I come to a new team. I want to create a new culture. Step one, after I've met with people for a week, is an offsite, virtual offsite, 1 hour meeting even. And I'm going to say to everybody, hey guys, I want to define our values because I want to make sure that everybody that we bring into this team is aligned with us. Not so I can get you guys to behave the way I want you to behave. No. To get everybody who we add into this team or change or bring it to our fold all fits what we fucking care about. And everyone's like, fuck yeah, dude. Okay. Then what I'm going to ask them is I'm going to ask them two types of questions. What do you hate about other people? And what do you hate about other people or other situations as it relates to? You've heard me use that phrase before for coaching, for those of you that have been around, as it relates to. Okay. So here's what I mean. So I'll be like, hey, what kind of people do you, instead of who do you want on your team? What do you fucking hate about what people do you not want on your team? I don't want liars. I don't want pieces of shit. I don't want assholes. Okay. Sounds like you guys value empathy and integrity. Is that right? Yes. Because what you hate is the opposite of what you want to be. Right. But when you say, what do you want? When I say, what do you want? What I get is, ideal state, and it's not true. It's like, Mike, what do you care about? I'm like, 6-packs. Mike, you're 40. Have you ever had a 6-pack? No. So I don't think you actually value it as much as you think you do. In reality, I think you value ice cream. So, but if you said, Mike, what are things you hate? I would never say fat people, because which would indicate I do value 6-packs. But if you ask me, what do I do value? I'd be like, I value 6-packs. I value health. That's why I'm always working out. Never days. Okay. So I'm going to ask that question of what do you guys hate about other people? What do you guys hate about situations? Now, the next version of the question is as it relates to. So I always open it up with a generic, but then I'm going to go to the specific. Pro tip, any way that your team already behaves in a shitty way, this is going to become one of the as it relates to questions. So if your team is complaining all the time, I'm going to be like, how do you guys feel like we should, what kind of people do you hate as it relates to fucking whatever, complaining. What do you, and everyone's like, I hate complainers. That shit's bullshit. And you're like, dude, me too, bro. And you're just collecting. Okay. So as it relates to complaining, as it relates to taking ownership, as it relates to activity, as it relates to persistence, skills, reputation within the company, respect for others. I promise you at the end of this, people are going to, it ends up getting kind of passionate's a little bit too big of a word, but people will be like, and this, yeah, you know what? Actually, he said that. It's this too. By the end of it, this will have happened for a half hour, 45 minutes. People sort of stating core stuff. And then at the end, you go all right, guys, If it's obvious, you can do it in the meeting, but I do it afterwards a lot of times. I sort of just take this, because I'm just writing it down on the whiteboard or like on a doc, just like writing down like, any words I'm hearing. And then I'll come back to everybody and be like, hey guys, based on what you said, what I heard was, or like, and I'm just like, oh, the stupid shit you said that I don't give a fuck about, I never heard it. And the stuff you said that I do care about, that's the thing, we're going to be our values. Now I have our values, and our values are whatever. Persistence, ownership, whatever it is. Okay. Now, the first thing is to define those values and everybody else doing it, because now when they are behaving, you want to call back to that, which I know seems like really fucking lame, but saying to someone like, dude, I know that wasn't your intention. Like, you're the kind of guy who does abide by the value of like persistence. And I feel like you're not being persistent right now. You know what I mean? Because we agreed to that, we've all sort of like tied ourselves to that identity. To not act in that way will be uncomfortable. So this is why you want to have these values. You can bring it up. You can bring it up later. Okay.
One thing, Mike, I found is my team has started using that against me. When they want to do something, they'll say, well, I want to do this because this would include urgency and teamwork. So this is a really important thing that we need to do or something, right? Because now they're already intentionally tying it to the values that we talk about every week. So
I'm okay with that.
It's good. I'm just saying that
yeah, that can happen too. And then you're like, fuck, you're right.
Oh man, okay.
And
we have to do it more.
This is now what you just situation you just described. There's two things. Number one, what you've said, you've just told me you just told me that your branding is going so well, the team's doing it without you. The team just built a new hotel and they knew that the brand was Nike, so they did it with a swoosh and it made it look kind of like a moving thing. You said this is our values. You talk about it, I'm going to guess in your Monday mashup. And now the team just knows that. And so when they're on your team, they knows that. They know that those are the values. And so they are already acting in that way, as evident by them bringing it up proactively. The other thing they're doing is they're showing to you the lesson I have for everybody else from that is the importance of, this is going off topic slightly, the importance of deposits. Because in that moment, Jeff, you might have to say, totally, you're right. I know you want it. I'm pulling rank. Yeah. We're not doing it. Dad, our values are like family and adventure. Why are we not going to Disney World? Fuck. I said so. And if you're a piece of shit, your kids are like, fuck you. And if you're not a piece of shit, your kids are like, that fucking sucks, which is a lot better than fuck you. But it's still that fucking sucks. But it's better. Okay. So do the exercise with your team to be like, hey guys, I want to talk through what our values are. If you're uncomfortable with it, do it within one-on-ones. And then you can afterwards be like, hey guys, you guys all know I've talked to you guys one-on-one about your values. Here's what I'm hearing. So if the team is like really not like that kind of vibe, do it in the one-on-one, still bring it up. And this goes right in your Monday mashup. So your Monday mashup, this is your Monday mashup. What's up, guys? I'm going to do this at pace. What's up, guys? Everybody had a good weekend? Sweet. Awesome, man. Cool. As you guys know, our values are TBD, XYZ, and ABC. If you do good, you do good. If you do bad, you do bad. Anyways, here are results. So that is how much time I'm spending on values. Under a second. But it's the consistency. You see how these messages keep like building on each other? It's the consistency of the message. I'm not being loud about it. I'm being consistent about the message that these are our values. And this will when you have the values, even if the behavior that your person is going to take is not something that's ever been visual or seen, reprimanded, talked about before, to do company, nobody's ever, done an opt-out clause. Your rep won't do an opt-out clause on their own if one of the values is like integrity or company first. But if the value is like money at all costs, which could be a value and not a bad value, depending on where the company is, then your rep might come to you and say, yo, I was thinking about doing an opt-out clause. I came up with a new idea where we could charge $1, but then actually charge their card more once they've hit this threshold, and we put it in terms and conditions. All right, Billy, that's pretty fucking shitty, but all right, makes us more money. Good job. So this is the importance of the values. I hope you guys are really picking up like how the value will drive the behavior without you being there. And I'll say another thing about this. So I mentioned how like the more you move up in an organization, the less you can touch the individuals. So you have to be able to handle creating culture from afar. A better way to think about that too is the farther up of an organization that you go, the less words you can say to a team to describe the culture. If I talk to a frontline manager, I go, tell them about your culture. Like, it's a high performance culture. We love to help each other. We definitely care, but we want to make sure we always hit our number. If I talk to the CEO of that company and go, what's the culture of our organization? They're going to be like, grit. That's it. Because they can't communicate the rest. They can't communicate a whole fucking paragraph throughout the organization, but they can say grit to their manager, who's going to say grit plus this little bit of jazz to their manager, and this grit plus jazz plus a little bit of my jazz to this manager. And now you end up having an organization that is all unique teams. We're different combinations of humans, but it's all has this thread of grit. And even if no one's talking to that guy in the company. Okay. You guys with me?
Yeah, Mike, the other thing I think a lesson that life keeps teaching me is that a lot of times the values seem to be more communicated by what I tolerate at the kind of bottom, than what, I can sit there and say this over and over, but then I let this one person get by with this one thing. And then it's like, well, that's the new standard of the value. Right. And
yes, you can feel
teaching myself that of how important that is.
Yes. Thank you so much for teeing this up. Your behaviors are what really do drive what we people think your values are. So it's important to define them, and everyone's like, all right, cool. Are you going to stick to that? And if you do, and you're consistent, your money. And if you're not, I'm not trying to get political, but we can see how the values in our country have shifted over the last 15 or 20 years, right? Like even just as a culture of 340 million people, our values and our actions that we are taking as individual people are materially different than they would have been acceptable 15 years ago. And it's 300 million people. So if you're like, oh, I'm in a big organization, or oh, I'm the CEO, or oh, I don't know anybody, or everyone's been there longer than me, dude, you can change a fucking nation. So yes, when you we've all seen this, I'm sure. When you fire the person on the team who sucks, it doesn't hurt the team. It actually, what ends up happening is the top reps come to you quietly and go, dude, thanks for finally fucking doing that, every time. What they're really saying is, hey man, it was really uncomfortable being on a team where our values are working hard, but you weren't living those values because you had people that weren't working hard in the team. And it made me not feel like I was part of this team because I was part of that value. This value is part of the team. Ipso facto, I'm part of the team, but then you weren't part of that value. So the ipso facto, we're on separate teams. So I didn't want to work hard. And each time you did a deposit, each time you helped me, I was like, fuck you. Not actually, but that's kind of how I was feeling, just not consciously. So when you're making changes to the team that you're like, this has to happen. We have to change the CRM. We have to get this stuff to happen. You need to be always, your team is allowed to be a notch off, but mom and dad have to be perfect. So that means you might have to do shit that actually hurts the team in order to maintain the integrity. Like we're with the company right now. They're firing somebody who's on fucking just having a stint put in her heart. We're heartless people, but we also found out that she was scamming the company. So we're like, you're fired. I don't care that you can't do that. So anyways, I want to keep talking about culture. It's just a big thing. It's very subjective. Feel free to ask me questions as you go. Send me anything. Someone just sent me transcripts to their one-on-ones to be like, hey, how's this going? Anything you want, I'm here for you guys. Thank you for your time. And thanks again for your patience. And Jeff, thank you. Later, guys. Later, Gators.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.